Howdy, y'all. It's Gravy signing in. Y'all, I was asked by a friend the other day what the weather was like over there. I told him I thought Kuwait was the hottest weather. When the wind blew, it felt like a quiet blow dryer set on low, but the gust that felt like someone turned it up on high. Oh, it was hot. 5 months in Baghdad during the fall and winter. The heat during the day was honestly wasn't that much worse than Texas in the summer. In fact, we read an article in Kuwait while at the wash rack at the naval base about how there was actual snowfall in Baghdad. We'd missed it by just about a week. It was a big thing, and I believe it was the first snowfall in something like a half century. But Kirkuk, it was more of a desert, especially when compared to the city of Baghdad. It got quite cooler at night since there was, nothing to hold the heat in near the earth. And the heat would radiate out into the atmosphere. Um, as soon as the sun went below the horizon, anyway. The worst part in Kirkuk was the beginning. We had to stay in Tent City. They had cooling fans, but um, they worked so hard and consistently drawed power. It would break down regularly. And about a week in, we had to like order a whole new unit. That wasn't as horrible as some had it, but to have it and not have it for a day, it was no fun. Then about a month in, we all moved to the chews, which are containers with like two windows, a regular door, AC, two lights, two beds, two desks, two closets, and then whatever we brought with us. Shortly after that, most of my company moved to the other side of the base into an actual like Iraqi building. Um, the AC work orders. So if we had issues, it was like less than a week, and we get it repaired or replaced or fixed. So now in the Humvees, there were vents for AC, but our like full battle rattle blocked most of it. So I took the fin covers off of the vents for the air and shoved a shop vacuum type dryer vent type wide hose into the vents, and this way the gunner could run the air up his vest and hopefully prevent him from getting prickly heat. That's where the clothing is so tight against the skin it doesn't allow for sweat to exit the pores, and then it cools and the salt crystals harden inside the pores. Then when you sweat the next time, the sweat pushes out the salt crystals and it feels like 1,000 needles poking your skin. Um, I soon I tactfully acquired a bunch of hoses and did every truck. The the gunners, they had it worst. Um, we wanted to see how hot it actually got, and we ended up blowing up a digital thermometer by leaving it up in the gunner's hatch. I mean, it wasn't even in direct sunlight either. Um, it read 320 degrees Fahrenheit before the screen went black and like it started to deform and expand along the seams. Yeah. I think in the summer it would regularly hit like 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43.3 degrees Celsius. Sometimes we would have to have the driver and gunner switch up, like whenever we were stopped or like after our lunch break or lunch hour. But yeah, it was warm. Um, my second tour, I was fairly climatized to hot weather. To the point I now hate cold weather. Especially cold tenses me up, which is which causes debilitating pain at times. Yeah, I thought it was funny how we got sent to Fort Hood, or excuse me, uh, Fort Polk. Sorry, yeah, Fort Polk in Louisiana for practicing war instead of like the deserts of the Southwest or whatever. But yeah, and instead of like camel spiders, we had gators walking down the main street of mock-up of an Iraqi village while we were playing laser tag at um, Fort Polk, Louisiana. In fact, instead of a desert, we had plenty of practice buckling up for a tropical storm. Um, getting everything up off the soggy ground, trying to keep the vehicles level. Duct tape X's on the windows, and had to wear wet weather gear. Then we took off from Fort Hood and went to Kuwait like midwinter, which is why you'll see like in the videos the local people wearing long sleeves up to like even coats. So while us Americans are sweating and needing to drink so much water. The other thing we had to combat is the dust devils and the dust storms. Especially since Kirkuk had open sewers that would like dry up and blow in the wind. Ugh. At first, for a few months, my eyes, nose, and face were so swollen from all the crud in the air and caked underneath the underside of the vehicles that I had to get under and work on. Yeah. Oh, disgusting. But thank goodness I didn't get sick any worse than I did over there. When we were at the naval base, I had to work on the night shift. If I remember right, it was from 1800 hours to 0600 hours at the wash rack during the winter. I wouldn't have thought, it would have gotten cold in Kuwait, but this time we were by the coast and it was a wet cold, which we were already wet from washing every speck of dirt off of every inch of the equipment, tools, vehicles, all before they were, shipped back home in case it had germs, bacteria, and things that Americans don't have immunities for. So yeah, we had to fight a couple invisible enemies over there. It definitely gave me a new or different appreciation for those who served before me and did it with less or, next to nothing. Thanks for stopping by. Please like and share. Gravy out.